The views and opinions expressed in The Fact Is with Hollis Grant are those of Hollis Grant and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Droids Canada Network. Droids Canada Network does not take responsibility for any content or position produced by Hollis Grant and his show. Listener discretion is advised.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for tuning in to another edition of The Fact Is. I'm your host, Hollis Grant. And today we're going to continue on with the topic from last week of the World Economic Forum. Take a look back on our Facebook page. Take a look back on Droids Canada. All your favorite places to listen to podcasts. Go listen to our prior episode where we did talk about the World Economic Forum, who they are, who are the key policy holders or policy makers in the organization, and what are their plans. Well, today we're going to dive a little bit deeper in the World Economic Forum, and we're going to talk about the Rockefeller family of America, one of the wealthiest families in the entire world. Now, the Rockefellers have a strange relationship with Henry Kissinger. And just what is that relationship? February 2nd, 1979, Henry Kissinger wrote the following in his words of commemoration for the memorial service for Nelson Rockefeller. This is available at henrykissinger.com/remembrance/Nelson-Rockefeller. Now I'll read a quick statement that he had. This is very lengthy, but I'll just shorten it down to one paragraph. So, where did this relationship start? I first met Nelson Rockefeller when, as an assistant to the president, he called me, a graduate student, to join one of the panels of experts he was forever setting up to ponder the nation's future. He entered the room, slapping backs, calling each of us by the best approximation to our first name that he could remember. At once outgoing and remote, intoxicated by the proximity of power, all of us thought to impress him with our practical acumen and offered tactical advice on how to manipulate events. After we were finished, the smile left his face and his eyes assumed the hooded look, which showed that we were now turning to things that mattered. Quote, "What I want you to tell me," end quote, he said, "is not how to maneuver. I want you to tell me what is right." What is right for Nelson Rockefeller? This was the quintessential question, both naive and profound, at once shaming and uplifting. It was the definition of his integrity. All that was 25 years ago, when that phone call came last Friday night, it seemed that our relationship had just started, and now it was already over. Now, this is just a brief example in words that he wrote for his friend that passed away. Now, why are we reading this? Well, we know that the Rockefeller family is a very wealthy and influential family. The first family to reach $1 billion, and that was in the 19th century. We know that they have power and influence over the American government, the American markets, and the world markets, along with families in Europe. But we're pointing out the Rockefeller family now for the fact that Henry Kissinger was close friends with them. Why are we mentioning Henry Kissinger? Because last episode we talked about Professor Klaus Schwab, the founder of the World Economic Forum. So now we have this family. It's all been influenced, and now we have this powerful group of companies reporting or gathering together every year in Davos. Now, fast forward a few years, and we have the year 2020. This particular sound clip comes from none other than His Royal Highness Prince Charles. This is from the Royal Family Channel YouTube channel where you can go and see, and this was posted a year ago. Now, this particular clip is 1 minute and 40 seconds. And why are we playing this? There is a key phrase that he's talking about a reset, the Great Reset. We know the World Economic Forum, they do meet, they talk about how they will bring about the fourth industrial wave. That is no secret. You can take a look at yourself, and we have covered off a bit of that last episode. But here we go. I want you to hear from Prince Charles, his own voice, in this particular clip.
A golden opportunity to seize something good from this crisis. Its unprecedented shockwaves may well make people more receptive to big visions of change. Global crises like pandemics and climate change know no borders and highlight just how interdependent we are as one people sharing one planet. Over the past month or so, despite the ongoing crisis, I've been encouraged to see the growing calls for a green recovery. We need only look to the United Nations Secretary General, to the IMF, the EU, the Petersburg Climate Dialogue, the Canadian government, the COP26 Universities Network, and business leaders around the world to see this. And as we move from rescue to recovery, therefore, we have a unique but rapidly shrinking window of opportunity to learn lessons and reset ourselves on a more sustainable path. It is an opportunity we have never had before and may never have again. So we must use all the levers we have at our disposal, knowing that each and every one of us has a vital role to play. Everything I have tried to do and urge over the past 50 years has been done with our children and grandchildren in mind. So I can only encourage us all to think big and act now.
Now, you heard in his own words, a great reset. There is one particular interesting clip, and I'll play it. It's around the 44-second mark. But if you listen to what he says regarding Canada.
Petersburg Climate Dialogue with the Canadian government, the COP26 Universities Network.
So looking towards the Canadian government. Why is that such an interesting place or a statement? In that 1 minute and 40 seconds, talking about a reset or resetting the economy, resetting things towards a green future. But why is that one particular statement we look towards Canada? He singles out Canada. It's a very fascinating thing to talk about. We know that Canada is part of the Commonwealth. We know that there's historical ties, but Canada is not a large manufacturing nation, peaceful nation. It's active in peacekeeping missions, but certainly not a leader on the world stage. So why is it that that was mentioned? Well, here's the next sound clip that is of strange coincidence. We talked about last episode, Chrystia Freeland, the Deputy Prime Minister of Canada, is on the board of directors of the World Economic Forum. So she clearly has the ear of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is on board with the World Economic Forum. He's on board with the agenda, the UN Agenda 2030. UN Agenda 2030, which has been talked about to move it up a few years. So let's see what Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has to say about this Great Reset. Now here is Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, taken from YouTube, taken from Global News from a year ago. And here's what he has to say in his own words.
The last 6 months have laid bare fundamental gaps and inequities within our societies and between them. As with climate change, those who have the least are impacted the most. That's why last spring, Canada worked with Prime Minister Andrew Hollis and Secretary General Antonio Guterres to convene a high-level meeting to discuss how leaders around the world could work together to close these gaps and build a better, more equitable system that works for everyone. In May, we agreed to look at 6 urgent areas of action to mobilize financing for the response and the recovery. Over the course of the summer, our 6 working groups produced over 250 policy options. On September 8th, finance ministers gathered to discuss these options and their recommendations for the short, medium, and long term. The most promising ideas will be taken up within existing IMF and World Bank processes, as well as at the G7 and G20 leaders' summits later in the fall. Then, in December, we're going to have the opportunity to meet again to discuss the progress we've made. Because we understand that right now we have to fix urgent problems, but in the long run, we also have to fix the system so that it works for everyone. To eliminate this virus anywhere, we need to eliminate it everywhere. While scientists work around the clock to develop a vaccine, as governments, we have the responsibility to ensure it'll be distributed quickly and fairly around the world. On Friday, I announced that Canada will provide $440 million to the COVID-19 Vaccine Global Access Facility, including $220 million to the Advanced Market Commitment to help low and middle-income countries access vaccines. This is an important initiative, and I encourage other governments to join in as well. We need to work together, and not just on vaccines. Canada believes that a strong, coordinated response across the world and across sectors is essential. This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset. This is our chance to accelerate our pre-pandemic efforts to reimagine economic systems that actually address global challenges like extreme poverty, inequality, and climate change. Last week, our government committed to investing more in international development while supporting developing countries on their economic recoveries and resilience. And on that note, today, I can announce that Canada will invest $400 million more in humanitarian and development funding, which will go directly to trusted partners on the ground fighting COVID-19. Our government is committed to investing even more in the years to come. In addition, we will continue to advocate for extending the debt service suspension initiative. We will also work on ensuring the special needs of small island developing states and other vulnerable countries are taken into account. Building back better means getting support to the most vulnerable while maintaining our momentum on reaching the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the SDGs. Canada is here to listen and to help.
So there we have it. The Prime Minister of Canada acknowledging the Agenda 2030, acknowledging a great reset, acknowledging taking wealth from the nation of Canada and giving it to poor nations. Now we have to talk about President Joe Biden and his Build Back Better platform, building back better using a lot of green energy, the green movement. There's zoning regulations that are going on, mass government spending and union jobs, etc. Let's just hear a little clip of what he has to say before he rambles on too much, as Joe Biden has a tendency to do when not on script.
Important things done for the country. I know it's hard. I know how deeply people feel about the things that they fight for. But this framework includes historic investments in our nation and in our people. Any single element of this framework would fundamentally be viewed as a fundamental change in America. Taken together, they're truly consequential. I'll have more to say after I return from the critical meetings in Europe this week. But for now, let me lay out a few points. First, we face, and I apologize for saying this again, we face an inflection point as a nation. For most of the 20th century, we led the world by a significant margin because we invested in our people. Not only in our roads and our highways and our bridges, but in our people, in our families. We didn't just build an interstate highway system, we built a highway to the sky. We invested to win the space race, and we won. We're also among the first to provide access to free education for all Americans, beginning back in the late 1800s. That decision alone to invest in our children and their families was a major part of why we were able to lead the world for much of the 20th century. But somewhere along the way, we stopped investing in ourselves, investing in our people. America is still the largest economy in the world. We still have the most productive workers and most innovative minds in the world. But we've risked losing our edge as a nation. Our infrastructure used to be rated the best in the world. Today, according to the World Economic Forum, we rank 13th in the world.
Now, it's interesting that you would pull a quote from the World Economic Forum. Now, going in back to the Rockefeller family, we will talk about a recent press release that occurred on June 21st, 2021. And IKEA and Rockefeller Foundations pledge $1 billion in clean energy. The IKEA Foundation, the charitable arm of the world's biggest furniture retailer, and the Rockefeller Foundation said on Monday that they plan to set up a $1 billion fund to support renewable energy programs in developing nations. The Rockefeller family has a huge stake in energy. The fund, which will be launched this year, aims to reduce 1 billion tons of greenhouse gas emissions and empower 1 billion people with distributed renewable energy, the foundation said in a joint statement. Each foundation will provide $500 million of risk capital, the Financial Times reported, adding that they hope to attract an additional funds of $10 billion this year from international development agencies before opening up to institutional investors in their bid to expand renewable investment in countries such as India, Nigeria, and Ethiopia. This can be commercially viable. There's $1 billion taking risk up front, and that can unlock tens of billions of dollars, the report quoted Rajiv Shah, president of the Rockefeller Foundation. We're not gambling here. We've seen it work in India. We know what it takes to become successful. The foundation have already signed agreements with the International Finance Corp, an organization affiliated to the World Bank, and the U.S. International Development Finance Corp, according to the report. IKEA aims to be climate positive by 2030. And Inca Group, the owner of most IKEA stores, said in April it had earmarked 4 billion euros, which is 4.75 billion, to invest in green energy products. You don't invest in money to lose it. You do it to gain profit. So here it is, the world's future, renewable energies. And as we look upon the massive windmills over the North Sea, we look upon the mass windmills all across the United States, and we see the decimation of migrating birds. And we see the rusted out windmills that are falling and toppling as they don't last more than 20 years. And we see in the vast fields of the mirrors in California to reflect the light, to harness the energy of the sun, and that those glass panels shattering and breaking and rotting in the desert. And that was Governor Schwarzenegger's ambition. Green energy has its place in society. There is some good for green energy, but changing at such a rapid pace isn't necessarily the best idea. Now, in closing of the show, we are going to give a quote from David Rockefeller. David Rockefeller was the third generation of the Rockefeller family. He was the chairman and chief executive of Chase Manhattan Corporation. He's born in 1915. He died in 2017. His assets, his personal fortune was estimated at $3.3 billion at the time of his death in 2017. Now, the Bilderberg Group is a group similar to the World Economic Forum, a little smaller scale than the World Economic Forum, but this is a group that has been meeting for hundreds of years, at least 150 years, and it has been meeting. And here is a quote that David Rockefeller is attributed to saying. Some even believe we are part of a secret cabal working against the best interest of the United States, characterizing my family and me as, quote, internationalists, and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure. One world, if you will. If that is the charge, I stand guilty, and I am proud of it. And today we have the World Economic Forum pushing for a globalist view. We have the United Nations pushing the globalist view of 2030. And you have powerful families wanting a globalist view. A one world, a one nation. This is no longer a conspiracy theory. These are the facts. I'd like to thank you for listening this week. You have yourself a great week. And thank you for tuning in to The Fact Is. And I'm your host, Hollis Grant.
Dan, what happens every Thursday?
That would be DCR Droids Canada Radio.
And what time is it out on Thursday?
That's from 9 till 11 p.m.
Dumb question. Where do you find it?
You find that at accessradio.ca.
And what's the best part?
It's